We're live, and good evening.
Hello. Hi. Well, welcome, guys. It's been a busy day. We feel like we're a little bit off kilter. We are. It's been really busy, and this is one of the topics that we're going to be talking about tonight. We are going to look deep into our crystal ball. We're going to tell you what our predictions are, what our opinions are of what is going on with the property market. And I think we'll just stick to Sydney, Mark.
Stick to Sydney.
Let's stick to Sydney. We'll stick to what we know. Yeah.
Stick to what we know. That's the safest thing.
I agree.
How bananas, eh? If you think about it, I guess sometime we're going to take summary, and let's take summary.
Yeah.
It's September. We've been ravished the last 6 months.
Yeah.
We started off the first 3 months fairly normal. Equity is the biggest asset in Australia. Property is the biggest asset or equity that people actually have. So it's very, very close to people's hearts.
Yeah.
And anytime people get to time to have a chat with us, it's always about, what do you reckon? What do you reckon?
Yeah.
How's it going? I don't care how smart some of my clients are or how simple, they all have the same questions.
Well, look, no one's actually been through COVID. So, there's always been these property predictions, Mark, and I've heard you talking about them for years and years. If you had the opportunity, you would have actually tattooed the property graph for 40 years, going back 40 years. You would have tattooed that, no doubt, onto a body part, because it was so ingrained into NOVAKS, this property graph, because it was almost predictable when people would say, "Oh, I'm just going to wait for the market to go down." You'd bring out the graph, right? And it was always like, show me where property has gone down over the last 40 years. And then, of course, COVID came about.
Yep.
And so you could kind of throw the graph out the window, we thought, because we didn't know, because everyone was saying, oh, property is going to go down 40%. Be careful with what's going to happen with the cliff. September. Now we're staring deep into the eyes of March. What's going to happen? And guys, we're only talking about Sydney, right? That's our playground here.
Let's look at the property market in the last 100 years. We've had depressions, recessions, global financial crisis 2.
Yeah.
You had wars, lots of wars. Like, you couldn't have, in the last 100 years, you couldn't have really turned the world upside down much more. Like, we've had fires, we've had, like, as a country and as a world, we've had
everything. Yeah.
All of it.
I agree.
And pandemic, well, that's just another one of the big stresses that the world's had put on it.
Yeah. I think the difference here was, though, that no one actually knew exactly what was going to happen with the property market.
You don't know what's going with war, with GFC.
No, well, that's exactly right. But what we now do know is we've had a couple of bouts of COVID. We call it C2 that we're in, right? So we had COVID round 1, which started about February.
Ding, ding.
And then, of course, we went into our official lockdown here in New South Wales, and things sort of, more or less came to a bit of a standstill there for about 4 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
And then, of course, everyone was like eagerly waiting to see what was going to happen as we started to come out of lockdown. And Mark, I remember doing a video with you, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hope we don't look back at this video and think, what did she say that for? But I remember doing this video, and I called it the David Jones half-yearly clearance sale video. Do you remember?
Yep.
And it was right in the depths of COVID here in New South Wales. And I said, guys, I'm calling it. This is the bottom of the COVID market. And so it was. It so happened that it was, right? Because as soon as things started to come back to this new sense of normality, so did the buyers start coming out of the woodwork.
And you know what?
Yeah.
That makes me like normality, right? Because we're tying it back to the property market, what the property market's going to do, our predictions for the property market. But you've got to accept, guys, that people have spent the last 6 months sowing seeds. They spent the last 6 months like sowing seeds. You may think people have been holding their breath or not doing anything or nada, but people have been sowing seeds. People can't stop but to sow seeds in every way of their lives. So I had a good look around yesterday, and I was with a bunch of buddies having a couple of beers, and everyone that I spoke to, there was 4 different blokes there. Every single person there had made investments. Every single person there had sown seeds. And those seeds that they were sowing, they weren't property investments necessarily, but those seeds they were sowing were short-term and mid-term seeds that they're going to want to reap. And I thought to myself, you know what? No one's actually holding their breath. Everyone is actually just organising shit for the future, because you just can't sit in one place as a human. So, like it or not, COVID, life is forever.
Yeah.
It's forever, right? Pandemic, it is forever. When a war happens in World War I or World War II, I know my dad went through World War II, had a really old dad. Like that, he would tell me, his kid, his son, stories about the war 50 years later, 60 years later. Now, if you liken this pandemic to a war, because I think certainly financial, it's had as much impact. Death, it's had a lot of impact. But, you know, these are the things that we're just going to get used to and pass on to generations, guys. So don't think that much is going to change apart from what we've gone through the last 6 months. I think it's just going to keep on rolling. It's going to get smaller and smaller as the generations go on. But
and so here's the thing: there was an article that came out. It was about maybe 4 weeks ago, that suggested that the property market was going to come off by about 30 to 40%.
About 12 weeks.
And so it might have been 12 weeks ago. Yeah. Things happen quite quickly. So, you know, there was buyers that would come into open homes and say, I'm just seeing what's going on out in the market, but I think I'm going to wait until the market comes off. And I thought, how many times have we heard that from buyers? Now, the question is, what if it doesn't? The question is, what if you invested your money and you just sat and held it anyway? Because no one buys property and then sells it again 6 months later.
Yep.
People buy property, they hold it, and it's a long-term investment. And I just saw Anmol's just made a comment on there, which Mark's just cleared my screen.
She just put up a brilliant article, actually. Have a read of that later.
Which is now stating, and again, I just don't have those facts in front of me, but it's now stating that Westpac have released an article today that the market is going to go up by 10 or 15%. Now, that's obviously contradicting what the media was suggesting was going to happen.
What Westpac was suggesting.
12 weeks ago.
What Westpac was suggesting 12 weeks ago. Westpac.
Okay, there you go.
All 4 banks were suggesting between 30 to 50% drop, potential
property prices.
Potential drop in the marketplace. Now, 12 weeks later, 16 weeks later, these cats are coming out and they are saying they reckon the property market's going to go up
by 10 or 15%.
So that's a swing of 65%.
Yeah. So, you know, look, again, for those poor buyers that were waiting, you know, when I called the bottom of not the bottom, but the half-yearly clearance sale during COVID, and I said, guys, it's a really good time to buy. Don't wait until all the buyers come back out when we're starting to come out of COVID. That would have, in hindsight, that would have been a great time to buy, you know, because vendors were nervous, buyers were nervous, and so property prices in our area on the Northern Beaches came off about 10%. We're suggesting they've come off about 10%.
Now, a bit more beer talk that I had around the table yesterday as well.
Yeah.
Was low stock. And low stock seems to be across every single segment of the market, not just property market, but everywhere. So, for instance, some of the guys, I was talking cars. There was 260,000 cars on car sales pre-COVID. Now there's 130,000 cars for sale on car sales. That's a stock drop of about 100 to 130,000 cars. I can't remember the exact figures that were quoted to me. Now that's going to affect the prices of cars to go up. Secondhand cars are worth more now than they were.
Supply and demand, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the guys was buying tents. Can't get them. Another guy was buying boat, caravan. Can't get them. Now, all the price of these products is sort of slowly starting to teeter up because stock is low. And I encourage you to look at the property market with stock levels low. And that's the same thing. Now, stock levels low, people holding on to stuff because they don't need to sell stuff because it's really cheap to hold on to it.
Yeah.
What happens? More people want it. Low stock, value goes up. So guys, have a think about property. We haven't gone there yet in this conversation telling you about what we think the property market's going to do.
And
but
the thing is
there's
that
these things building
But
into
Mark,
it.
you only just need to have a look at our open home numbers. So we actually document every week. We've got our own WhatsApp group amongst our sales team, and we actually report our open home numbers. And it's really quite interesting. And look, I'm not a data person at all. However, it is very interesting, right, to track these numbers and see what's been going on since March, since the pandemic, was effectively started, and tracking those open home numbers. And sometimes we were seeing patterns of 0, 1, 2. If you've got 3 groups coming through an open home right in the depths of COVID, you were doing well.
That first 4 weeks.
The first 4 to 6 weeks, I would say. 4 to 6 weeks. Now we're back to seeing, I've been reporting numbers. I had 31 groups at an open home. Some of my
30s,
we're seeing groups in the 30s. We've even had we took photos on Saturday, Mark, where we had people lining up down the street of our open homes, not just for sales, but for rentals as well. Now, this is interesting too, because usually when the property market takes off, the rental market slows down.
Property sales market.
The rental market slows down, and vice versa. But what we're actually seeing at the moment is they're both as strong as one another.
Yes.
So we have hardly any rental stock on the market at all at the moment.
Yep.
Right. That's done a full about face, and the same with the property market as well.
Well, our properties under management. We manage about 1,600 properties.
Yeah.
And we at the moment have 24 properties for lease in residential. The height of COVID, within that 4 weeks, 6 weeks there, the real bad part, we got up to almost 70 properties for lease. So that was pretty scary. A lot of discounting, a lot of tenants moving around, moving out. Yeah.
But again, it's good for rents because the same with the rental market, right? It works on that supply and demand. So if you've got less rental properties on the market, then as a landlord, you can command a slightly higher rent. So both of those markets are looking very, very strong. In fact, I would suggest that we are going to, where we came off 10% on the property market during COVID, I would suggest that that's going to bounce back quite quickly. In fact, that's my prediction. I'm calling it right now, that property market's going to bounce right back up to where it was pre-COVID, because there are all the signs that we are heading right into the eye of a very, very hot market here, a very hot market. And in fact, I don't even think Christmas is going to play the slightest bit of difference this year. The calendar's been turned upside down anyway. I'm speaking to a lot of vendors. I'm going to be listing quite a bit of stock over the next couple of weeks, and none of them have even mentioned anything at all about the Christmas period.
Well, another one, I had a conversation while I was cleaning the toilet this morning in the office with Branka.
This is a true story. He does. We do a big office clean, and Mark does clean the bathroom. Yeah.
And I don't mind. It's,
Yep.
It's cool. And we were saying about, and Branka's a very wise lady, and we were saying about, there's always our age-old thing about our kids have it so much harder than how we had it easier. When it came to buying a property, particularly when it came to buy a property, we had it easier. It wasn't like it was back then. It's harder now. And I said to Branks, look, honestly, we were looking at 10% interest rates.
Oh
so
gosh,
your property repayments were 4 times more to have a property than they are today.
And what about stamp duty concessions?
You just took the words right out of my mouth.
We're married.
And it's true.
Yeah.
What about there's no stamp duty for these little punters? They can use their super, these little punters. They can use 5% deposit. Couldn't use 5% back then.
I remember buying my first property, and
that would have been only 10 years ago, Lisa.
Yeah, it's a like that, had saved really hard. You know, my parents loved, and my mum still does. My dad's not here anymore, but my parents loved property. And so it was always a big thing that you've got to save, you've got to buy your
I went down
property.
pretty well when I got introduced. Real estate agent, they love property.
And I remember saving up, buying my first property, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then came the letter from the solicitor saying, with the calculation, stamp duty. And I was like, what's this? What do you mean? The stamp duty was almost as much as the actual deposit I'd saved up. Luckily, Dad came to the rescue. But, you know, the thing is that you're right, Mark. There's so many concessions around these days, you know.
Put it into perspective, guys. Like, seriously, when 30 years ago, when we were buying, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, when we were buying, the repayments were 4 times more than today.
Yep.
And there were no incentives.
Yes,
so
true.
Low stock.
Okay.
Good incentives from government, low interest rate coming in there as well.
Yeah.
Now, you may think first home buyers don't help you, but guess what happens? When the first home buyer buys the 2-bedroom unit or the 1-bedroom unit, someone sells that unit. That person who sells that unit, they are going to buy a house. So people that own houses and people that own properties for 2 million or 1.5 or 1 million or 800,000, believe me, a first home buyer incentive is as good for you, because that's where your buyer's coming from. They're coming up through the ranks. They've just sold to the first home buyer.
And then if you speak with the mortgage brokers, they'll tell you how flat chat they are. Absolutely flat out. There's such a backlog at the moment of processing that's going on that often we're having to do 10-day call-offs now, because 5 days is just simply not enough. And it's not necessarily to do with the logistics. It's more to do with the fact that they're just completely backlogged. I mean, I was talking to a client the other day who was buying something up in Byron Bay. And she said to me, I went into the solicitor's office and I saw this huge stack of papers sitting on the desk. And I said to him, what is that? And he said, they're all contracts. That's all conveyancing. And he said, in the history of our business, it's been around for 45 years. I've never, ever seen our practice like this, ever.
Far out. Sea change.
It's incredible.
Tree change.
So, and
people are going for a sea change.
It's not just happening here, Mark,
change.
and I think this needs to be addressed, that we're talking to agents all over the country. All over the, sorry, the phone's ringing. We're talking to agents all over the country, and every single agent, particularly in these regional areas, is reporting the same facts, that they are so busy, they actually don't have enough supply to keep up with this demand. It's quite incredible. You know, we talked the other day, Mark, about this, about the ripple effect. And
we talk about property sometimes when we're not at work.
We do, it's true. But, you know, we talk about this ripple effect and how, you know, people are moving. And so they're moving sort of one rung out. So Northern Beaches people are moving out of the Northern Beaches, not all of them, but some of them. We are seeing this movement happening.
You want a diagram?
No, we don't need a diagram. Where they're moving out of the Northern Beaches and, you know, they're pushing up to the coast, or they're pushing down the coast. All the time. I've just been at a client's house now and she's doing the same thing. And then likewise, we're also seeing people coming from outside of the Northern Beaches. So a lot of people from St Ives, Chatswood, eastern suburbs.
Are you seeing that?
Northern Beaches.
Are you seeing that?
Yeah,
Tell us.
I can see Animal on here. I'm very interested to know if you're seeing the same movement. But people, Mark, people don't pick up, sell a property and move house on like a temporary. It's not a temporary thing. This is permanent. You know, so people think that this whole scenario is going to go away. It's not.
But that's what I'm saying about investing. You know, so people are investing in stuff. This stuff that people invest in is short-term, mid-term, long-term.
Yeah.
Short-term, mid-term, long-term. People are making these investments, and it's happened. Like, it's actually these investments they're getting it into, they're going to come out of them maybe 10, 20, 30 years later. So it's really significant.
It is significant. So let's talk about crystal ball, Mark. Let's talk about, what are your predictions? You've been in real estate for so long. Like, what do you reckon is going to happen? What's going to happen? Let's talk short term. Forget about what's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years. I want to know what is going to happen to the property market within the next 3 to 6 months.
Nothing.
Going to stay as it is? What does nothing mean to find that?
It's just, it's going to, instinctively, people are like bears. Through summer periods, people come out of hibernation. Through winter periods, they go into hibernation. So at the end of the day, there's just going to be more buyers out there, more sellers out there, activity out there, not going to be price hikes, not going to be price drops, just good old fashioned real estate trading in the next 3 months.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think property prices are going to bounce back up to where they were. So before COVID hit, we were coming right out of a red hot market. I think they're going to get right back to where they were. So I think we are going to get back to that red hot market. I think stock levels are going to be lower. That's going to, that's what's going to assist in pushing these property prices back up to where they were.
Yep.
And I can't see huge amounts of stock coming on the market either. People are talking about these urgent sales. These vendors that need to sell urgently. Well, we transact a lot of property, Mark. I haven't seen one of them, not one.
Like, guys, if you're going to sell a property, if you're going to rent a property out for more than what your repayments are, why the hell are you going to sell the property in distress? It's impossible. If you're getting a 2.5% or 3% interest rate.
Oh, that's such a good point.
And like, how can it be distressed? Like, are you going to dump the property for a loss? Or are you going to rent it out and the rent is going to pay off the interest and you just go rent somewhere else? Like, why would there be any property dumping?
I agree.
It just doesn't make sense. I don't get it.
But Mark, if we just go back to what we were talking about 10 minutes ago, where I said it's unusual for the rental market and the property sales market to be parallel with one another, because usually they fluctuate, right? Usually the rental market's stronger, property market's taken a bit of a bashing.
It's cheaper to own than it is to rent.
But you're so right, because if people can't afford to make those repayments, they'll move out. They'll move out of their 4-bedroom home into a 2-bedroom apartment and get rent in, and they're going to make, that's exactly right.
You're going to profit from renting your house irrelevant to what you bought it for in the last 1, 3, 5 years.
Is that going to change? Is that going to change come March? Because people
are making me angry.
But is it going to change come March? What's going to happen with the cliff? What's going to happen there?
What cliff? Cliff Schmidt with Schmidt. It's nothing.
No, you can't say it's nothing, because there are people out there that where the mortgage.
There's people in Africa that are starving. Like, there's always going to be an element of our community that are doing it hard, and we have a duty to help those people. If it's 10% of our community due to COVID, then the 90% have a duty to help out that 10%. Whether it's 5% or 1% or 15%, we're all in it together. Yeah. So at the end of the day, are the 90% not going to be able to bear the load of the 10% and carry them through the shit fight? Of course. It's like war. Like, we're going to go back, grab the guys and pull them through if they can't get through. So at the end of the day, it's going to get to March, and if there's a bun fight, the 10% or 5% of the community are having a really hard time, and the 90% have to suck it up, go back, grab the troops and pull them through. It's community, and it's what we do.
I agree. And I also just want to say to the buyers that I hear and I speak to at these open homes that say, I'm just going to wait and see what happens in March because the market may come down. Guys, just think, what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? Like, you just need that shift in the market of a couple of percent and you're outpriced. And also, if you're not locked into a property, you also don't even have the capabilities to be making money on the property. This is not short-term investing. This is long-term investing. I just want to talk about something else as well. I've been mentoring an agent who is just outside of, she's about an hour out of the CBD in Melbourne. So she sits in a rural area, and I've been helping her with a bit of training. She won a little competition that I ran. Anyway, long story short, I've been helping her with some training. But she said to me, it's really hard because a lot of the buyers come from around the CBD in Melbourne, and they're buying just an hour out. They're buying acreage and things like that. And she said, so it's really quiet. And I said to her, document this moment, because in 3 to 6 months, I would suggest that you are going to be so busy, you will not be able to have enough stock to be able to keep up with that demand. So What do you reckon that's when Melbourne comes out of lockdown, Mark? What do you reckon is going to happen to the people that are living around that core of Melbourne?
Tie up a bull and see what it does.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
It's true.
if you've been locked in a corner, you're going to come out punching.
But would you not say, which is what's been happening here in Sydney? People are saying, I can move to Dural, I can go to Newcastle, and I can still work. And don't have to worry about what if we go into this lockdown again, because I'm on an ACAS. The kids are there, the schools are great. We don't have to worry as much about COVID, right? These areas are going bananas.
Guys, just look at this is like it's animal kingdom stuff. It's really, really basic. It's human nature. We are all there for each other. Like, you know, there are people out there that just don't want to work. Don't make them work. All right. They don't want a job. They can't get a job because they don't want a job. That's cool. The people that want a job, they're the ones that we help. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I think that people have got to be just, you know, if we have gone through the worst of it, which I would suggest emotionally and tactically and strategy-wise, it probably have. You know, we didn't even know how to deal with this. We understand somewhat how to do this. We're in C2 now. We're going through that. You know, we learned what Melbourne's done. We learned what New York's done.
Yes.
We got more respirators and stuff like that out. We're coming, you know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, guys, just get used to it. Now, to sum up, in the next couple of minutes we will, to sum up the property market, in summary, what we've said tonight, what we think the Oracle, whether we said the Oracle was going to, you know, where do you think, Anmal, if everyone gets a chance, follow Anmal. She's an absolute weapon.
Yes.
Mortgage broking company and real estate company. Really
Husband and wife duo as well.
Really good handle.
Totally got their finger on the pulse.
On the property market.
Yeah.
But in summary, if you're looking to us and you're going to walk through that front door of the office and you're going to ask us what everyone asks us, the most common question, our answer, in short, is buy
property. You know, look, nothing has changed the last 100 years and nothing's going to change in the next 100 years. As Mark pointed out, yes, we're going in and out of a pandemic, but we've gone through wars, we've gone through GFCs, and
recession, depression, World War I, World War
property
II.
has always come up trumps.
Vietnam,
it's always come up trumps.
Vietnam War, you know, all these.
I know Mr. Triggerbob did
I
saw someone sent me something that Mr. Triggerbob actually did his predictions on the property market. I'd love to watch that. It was on Sky News. I will be watching it because I tell you what, he never gets it wrong.
We're going to throw the link in there.
He never gets it wrong. I don't actually even know what he said.
He'll happily tell you what he thinks.
Absolutely.
And I remember him calling the bottom of the GFC at the same time.
Yes.
He copied us.
Yeah. A wise man. Anyway, it's never done us wrong, guys. Long-term transactions, property market is nice and strong. Certainly here on the northern beaches of Sydney, it is nice and strong. Friends all around Sydney are reporting exactly the same, and just on the outskirts as well. You know, all up and down the New South Wales coast. People are reporting the same, that it's absolutely bananas. I've spoken to agents just in the last week from Bathurst, Dural, Lura,
Foster,
ACT even, so outside of New South Wales, Foster, rural New South Wales, Byron Bay, Coffs Harbour,
Bosnia,
and they've all reported the same, that it is absolutely bananas. They can't get their hands on enough stock. It's looking positive. I think one valid point, Mark, that you said is, guys, just get used to it. This could be the new life, and just get used to it. We have to
work hard, go hard, work smart. And if you think you cannot afford to buy a property, just ask the banks. They will tell you.
Isn't that the truth? All right, guys, I think that's all from us, isn't it? Yep, that's it. Guys, have a great week. And we look forward to seeing you again next Monday evening.
Giddy up.
See you guys.
See you. Bye.
Bye.